porque pues, es un personaje de una época con una fuerza creadora, con una personalidad, con una característica incluso sociológica de una región.
Luis is really the first Hispanic artist, at least from my perspective and where he came out of New York in the contemporary art world, who transcended being Hispanic artist to being an American artist.
El arte de Luis Jiménez simplemente es un logro, es una realización, es un legado.
Who is Luis Jimenez? Luis Jimenez is a Mexican-American artist whose main artistic interest is making public sculptures. The large monumental sculptures are made of fiberglass and epoxy paints. The imagery in his art is diverse, but with strong symbolic meaning. In order to understand Luis Jimenez's art, we must understand the man, his environment, way of thinking, influences, motivation, and determination to continue creating.
Well, I was born in El Paso, so I grew up. The earliest memory I have of the many apartments we lived in to the time that I was about 6 was on Myrtle Street, where we lived next to a junkyard that was right there by the tracks.
So he's someone, I think, unusual in that his work grew exactly out of who he was.
My father was an artist from the time he was a very young man. He became a sign painter, and I mean, I just grew up helping my dad, helping him on his projects. I wanted to make the work more accessible to the public, and that comes out of a tradition that I have inherited from having grown up and had it on the border and having had the experience of seeing the public works in Mexico.
Es que habrá que hacer un esfuerzo para hacer un recuento de su legado.
La tierra negra se vuelve verde y las montañas y el desierto un bello jardín.
What I had done in the early beginning was that I did have an agenda.
You know, all those cultural things that Luis found nourishment in and shared with the world.
Una nueva era, como la semilla, lleva nueva vida.
That I was going to try to approach images within my culture in as unbiased a manner as I possibly could.
His pieces were always with a little bit of controversy, people wondering if they really wanted it, but they always seemed to settle down where they belonged, where people most loved them. The Southwest Pietà was going to go in downtown, I think Old Town, Albuquerque, and ended up in Martinez Town.
Alligator fountain. You know, they're alligators, and obviously they're much more energetic than alligators usually are. But I grew up in El Paso, and a few years ago, there were some people from El Paso that contacted me and said they would like to have a public piece, much like Albuquerque did, you know, to the National Endowment for the Arts. When I was a kid, they had live alligators in that, and they had a traditional old Mexican plaza in downtown El Paso. And I remember going as a child, my grandmother taking me down. to sort of bring them back. Obviously not live alligators, but bring them back in, in fiberglass and make a sculpture.
He took the techniques and the craftsmanship really of making sign and turning it into a fine art form and taking it to New York and of course the Smithsonian Institution and all over the world, communicating something about his own heritage, not just his own personal roots, but his cultural roots.
Pushing the envelope is interesting because I had that big retrospective show in Albuquerque, and there was a comment in the comment book that said, "This guy is not an artist. He's only pushing the envelope." I don't know. I like to think that I am an artist, and I like to think that I am good at pushing the envelope. Maybe both ways. I see myself as a traditional artist, coming out of a tradition, and we mentioned Frisco, and we mentioned my dad, and we mentioned Jose Aceves, and I really see myself as part of a continuum. I see my kids as part of a continuum.
A lot of times we see things that we don't like that actually make us think. And that isn't to say that all art should be something you don't like, but that at times it can be something new, and if it is something new, then we're not going to be used to seeing it, and we are going to have to rethink the way we thought about whatever it was before, whether it was the art or the subject matter or the approach or whatever.
The Firefighters is a sculpture that I took on when I was just backlogged with work. And I said, I'm really overwhelmed. I just can't do it. I said, but I'm just curious that you're doing a public sculpture right now, and I don't know how you're going to fund this project. And he said, we're taking a payroll deduction. So I was like, oh my God, I got all choked up. It was like,